Bonjour, hello everyone. I'm Nata, host of the NATA PR School podcast. You're a successful entrepreneur or marketing manager and you're about to launch a new product or service, or you've been selling your goods for quite some time, but you want to learn how to increase your visibility, get known, and reach more clients? At NATA PR, we deal with real clients every day and we'll teach you simple, fun, and honest PR solutions. You'll learn easy steps to combine PR to social media right now. Keep listening and let's get started. Bonjour, hello, and welcome to this 45th episode of the NATA PR School podcast. It's my great pleasure to welcome Alain Audet, General Manager Canada of PHOREST Salon Software, an Irish company and a global leader in salon and spa management systems. Alain Audet is without a doubt the most respected professional in the Canadian professional beauty industry. We say professional industry, this is everything that's sold in a salon, a spa, an institute, everything that's linked with this market. This is what we call professional. Everything that's not sold in a pharmacy, almost. So Alain is really a professional beauty expert. And before returning to Canada, where he launched the Kétastase brand, Alain worked for major international luxury brands in Southeast Asia, such as Prada, Gucci, Fendi, Armani, and many more brands. I like to think that with his 23 years of experience with hair brands and hair salons and spa, Alain knows probably the names of all the hair salon owners across Canada, which is a great accomplishment when you think that Canada is as big as Russia. Alain is also an enthusiast who knows how to forge solid links with all those who cross his paths. I met Alain 20 years ago when he came back to Canada to work for a denim brand, Parasuco Jeans, which was at the time looking for a professional of his caliber. And I will always remember when Sal Parasuco came to me with Alain's resume in his hands, asking me what I was thinking about. So what do you think about this guy? And I was super impressed with Alain's resume. And I told Salvatore Parasuco, Alain is the missing link. You have to hire this guy. And so he did. And I could spend hours, maybe, many podcasts describing Alain's impressive accomplishments. But I know it will be way more interesting to let him add to this introduction whatever he wants to share with you. So thank you for accepting my invitation, Alain.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is very exciting. I'm so happy to be spending time with you.
I know. We know each other, but we rarely sit down and take the time really to talk about what you've done and what we have accomplished together as well. So here's my first question, Alain. Who is Alain Audet? Who are you?
Well, after everything you just said about me, it's I have to kind of like break it up a little bit and say that, honestly, I'm just a simple guy. I come from very humble beginnings. My parents own a snack bar, dairy bar in Verdun. I went to public school. I went to university in Ottawa to learn my English because I was told at some point that my English was not good enough and that my name was impossible to say in English, that I would never find a job in English Canada. And I said, well, I'll teach people to say my name, but I will learn English first. I know I still have an accent, but that doesn't stop me. I just
like me, the typical French Canadian accent. But your English is way better than mine.
Well, I do okay. I work a lot in English, so that also has a big influence, So with all of that, then when I was in Singapore, I did my MBA with the University of Hull from England. Not Hull, Quebec, Hull, England. And that was distance learning while I was living there. And then I came back, and this is where we met working at Parasuco. And 20 years later, we're still working together, which is amazing.
I know. This is crazy, right?
Yeah.
I often tell that to my young employees who start there at the beginning of their career, and I'll tell them how important it is to create those let's say link, because this is your network and it's going to follow you for the rest of your career, and you're the perfect example of that. So tell us about what you do at PHOREST. So how do you do marketing and PR fit in the PHOREST, let's say, company?
Well, PHOREST as a company exists since 17 years now. It started at the front desk of a salon, so it's always been an in-salon tool, if you want. And of course, it evolved with technology and everything. It's still the same owner than 17 years ago. The creator is still the owner. Of course, there's other investors, other people with him. So now it's a team of 260 some people. And for the last 5 years, PHOREST has been selling in Canada at Canadianized, taxes and charges in Canadian dollars, and has the verbiage and everything in English, but had never really spent any time developing the product here, developing a brand and making the brand known. It was organic. It was Google search. People would find it. And then because we come up in top searches, and when you look into Capterra, we come up in the top 3 always. So people found us to a certain extent.
It's kind of a trailblazer, in the sense that they were kind of the first company to create such a software for salons and spas.
Well, the creation was really 17 years ago, where the issue that was solved was the fact that there was a lot of cancellations in the salon where Ronan Percival, our CEO, was working at. It was created from a need. So 17 years ago, when Ronan Percival, our CEO, was working as a front desk for a salon and spa, there was a lot of no-shows. So people who had an appointment but didn't show up. So that's a loss of revenue for the business, but it's also a loss of revenue for the employees, because their schedule is actually booked and they don't have a client. So he created the first two-way messaging confirmation system. So texting a client for the client to text you back to tell you that they're coming. So that was the first one of its kind. And from there, it evolved into an appointment software, then into a marketing software, and to now being a fully loaded salon management, spa management, barber management, nail salon, anything in the personal beauty or the professional beauty, which are the same. But in the industry, we like to say professional beauty, but the governments, which, during the whole COVID period, we were always presented as the personal beauty. So personal services. So personal services includes as well tattoo artists. So nail, skin, hair, and tattoos are all part of the personal services. And we call this internally, the industry itself calls it professional beauty industry.
And you were mentioning the spas as well. So
yes, the spas as well. So my job at PHOREST is to make the brand known in the Canadian market, to create events, create marketing, create campaigns, so the Canadian salon and spas and the whole professional beauty industry will know more about who we are, will recognize us, and will want to be part of our very fastly growing family.
So I'm guessing marketing is really important for us, since they found you and they've decided to hire you. So how did they find you?
We found one another.
That's interesting.
Well, like many, COVID was difficult for the company I was with before. So I was working for the Allied Beauty Association, and most of the revenue of the association comes from trade shows. And because of COVID, no events could happen. So trade shows were all canceled. After doing a lot of work in lobbying for first the closing of the salons, and then for the beauty industry to get access to the benefits. Then after that, lobbying to reopen with proper safety protocols and everything. But after a while, because it was taking so long for the whole COVID, and it was still in COVID, the company, the association, had no choice but to let go of their their whole office, if you want. So the permanent office was all let go. So November, I'm looking for a job. It's Christmas coming. I'm not in a hurry. I'm like, okay, let's figure out where I want to be in my life. And a very good friend of mine said, did you talk to, and then he lists a few tech companies, and I started talking to different tech companies. So I talked to 3 or 4, and then I started speaking with the people at PHOREST, and it clicked. It was just, what it was like okay, I know software. I've used softwares, in my consulting work with the salon and spas a lot. So I know what a software can actually do for a business, for a salon, how they can actually grow their business using the tool properly. Then I was looking at, the culture of the company, the customer service that they like to offer, the permanent research that they're doing, always research, always evolving, always growing. And it's a business that is built with the independent salon owners in mind.
It's very interesting.
So, which is the people I like to work with as well, so all of that. So we had a few meetings, and at some point they were like, okay, we'd like to make you an offer.
Wow.
And
That's
I said,
amazing,
okay,
because they didn't
yes.
have anyone in Canada like you, of your caliber, actually. So it was more like coming from the States, as it often happen. We know that sometimes, international company enter the US market. It's such a huge market, way bigger than Canada, obviously 10 times bigger than Canada. So it makes sense, but Canada is such a different market. But some companies do well. You need to know that if you are from Europe, so we have sometimes European people listening to us. Sometimes Canada can be a very good market. I know some companies who are making like 25% of their revenues just out of Canada. When you have, let's say, someone like Alain, or when you really know the market up there, depending on what you're selling, obviously. So that's really smart of them. Wow, to hire you because you know the market so well.
Especially, but what they know is that this is an Irish company where the number one market, of course, was UK, which is next to it. So UK is like the US and Ireland is like Canada. If you want, in proportions, it's pretty similar. It's pretty close.
Course, yeah.
So it's like 10, 12 times the size and all of that. So they're kind of used to this. And so they understood that what's happening in the States cannot be necessarily the same. Already, we had a Canadian website because there's some features we have in Canada different than the ones in the US. So there was already some Canadian version. Now we're working on a French version of the software, which is going to be the software is going to be used to launch French in Switzerland and in France also next year.
Were they expecting that when they hired you, that they would have to translate all their software and information in French?
Yes and no. They already have a basic French version because there was a few clients in Switzerland, a few clients here in Quebec. But they did not invest in translating because they were not ready to go to France or whatever. So I don't think they would have done it immediately because there was enough other markets for them to work with. Now being here and some of the brands that we want to create relationship with are also adamant that we need a French version. And in the conversations as well, it was clear that especially for our industry, that a French version translated in Quebec has more of an international language and has less anglicisms. Yeah. And even though, so
that's so interesting.
And also short, we know how to limit the amount of characters to match the English characters. So we have equivalent for words that fits in the same box and stuff like that. So we will do a translation here and they may have to do a bit of an adaptation afterwards in France, but the translation will be like 95% done. There will be 5% adaptation afterwards.
Done. It's funny. So it's going to be able to open the French market. It's funny. Sometimes we don't think about it. It might be easier this way instead of doing it in French with French people because we know they have their own way of speaking French. It's like another language sometimes, even if we share the same. It's like, the people in England, from England and the people in the United States, like Americans and English men and women, they don't speak exactly the same language, right? So it's kind of interesting to see that they will be doing the French version with you for the Quebec market. That's super interesting.
But even just in English alone, the Canadian version is using the British spelling compared to the American version. So color is O-U-R in Canada and it's O-R in the US. Neighbors, so there's about maybe 50, 70 words that are different in British English versus American English, even though they're pronounced exactly the same. True. And Canadians, for whatever reason, we have a tendency to use the British spelling.
That's true. Well, we still have the Queen on our money, and I guess that's probably why.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go back a little bit to the ABA. You mentioned it briefly, but the ABA is the Allied Beauty Association. And I know, Alain, you always love to learn. You're always learning new things. And when you started to work for them, I really saw you really decided to become super knowledgeable with Facebook, Instagram, and you now really master these tools. Even TikTok at the end before you left was really like emerging, but I know that it was really important for you to have like an online strategy that was including everything online. So maybe, why did you decide to master all these tools?
Well, the trade show world had evolved in a very, very fast way, and the association had not followed the pace. Okay. So the association was struggling with trade shows because mostly the large distributors and large manufacturers were creating their own events. So there was more and more of these large players not involved, and we had to focus on the smaller players, the up-and-coming brands, the startups, the very niche market players, and all of that. With that, what happened is now suddenly the association and the trade shows always relied on the large distributors and the manufacturers to sell the tickets. Now the Allied Beauty Association was entirely responsible for the success of its trade shows. So had to be selling tickets online, had to be attracting people at the door, and actually to be able to make the revenue, because the only source of revenue when you do a trade show is booths and then tickets. Okay, and then some sponsorship and stuff like that, but the money mostly is those two. So, and because we were relying on the profits from those shows to actually finance the operation of the association, it was very important that we actually figure out a way to sell our own tickets. So that came from rebranding the show, because we needed to actually give also, because we were pushing so much about, new brands and all of that, we needed to go and address a younger client base. So the ABA was still in there, but then we went from the Toronto ABA show to Revel in Beauty. So Revel in Beauty had its own name, had its own landing page. So we started playing the landing page thing. We had the hashtag. And then from there, we started, let's rebuild entirely our Facebook messaging, all our visual presentation of Facebook and then Instagram. Then, of course, after the first show, that was a quick fix because I came in November and the first show was a couple months after. So, and there was a shift in the team. So this is when I went to you guys, to NATA PR, like, okay, NATA PR, I need help with my social media. So let's rebrand entirely social media. So in the span of just about 6 months, we went from 1,500 followers on Instagram to 7,000 followers in no time. And then we doubled our Facebook numbers as well while we were building our database.
This is a lot because you cater, the ABA caters to professionals. It's not like a consumer brand. So it's...
and we were focusing a lot.
Numbers might seem low to some people.
Well, just when you look at the overall market in Canada, we're talking about roughly 100,000 hairdressers and overall about 300,000 professionals in the industry.
But you know by name, remember?
No, I don't know everybody.
You do, yes, you do.
I know a couple hundred, okay?
Oh, for sure.
Couple hundred. But, what was important is we were focusing on Ontario because that's where the show was. We were focusing on a younger demographics, and we were focusing on people who are looking for younger, trendier influencers in the beauty industry and all that. So it was... Instagram was where our market was, or the market that we were aiming for, but the traditional market of the association was actually on Facebook. So we had to actually...
So much work, huh?
Yeah.
So much work because it was like starting all over. Even if people know you, like you had to create like a different show. And since, as you mentioned, all the big international brands were not taking part in all these shows. They don't, I guess they still don't, even elsewhere in the world. You had to really reinvent it. And you decided to, with the online, you had a huge online strategy for that because were you talking to a younger audience or?
Yeah, in 3 years, we redid the website twice. Entirely complete redesign of the website. We changed the logo. We rebranded the events. We created 2 new events. One was canceled in Montreal. There was a barber's focus show that was going to happen in Montreal that was canceled because of COVID. Then we ran the World of Competition at West Edmonton Mall that was supposed to be part of a tour of schools, students' competitions in shopping malls. And we were going to bring this to Laval, and we had already a schedule coming up. But there was a lot of new events. Every event was rebranded. Everything had a new logo and a new visual and new kind of presentation. So that was part of like its 5-year plan, if you want, but got stopped in its track by COVID.
For COVID. Oh, so let's go back to the future. Let's go further back in the past for a little bit.
Yes.
At the time when internet was not as developed as it is now, you launched Kétastase in Canada.
Yes.
And you hired us to take care of public relations. It's a long story, but I think it's a very interesting one, especially today when we think about what you put in place. And you and I, we had this discussion because we recorded this podcast in French first. And so many things that I forgot that you had started. And they seem, you'll see, we'll talk about some tactics, some PR tactics and marketing tactics that might seem obvious, but, you know, way back then, you were the first to do those things. So tell us about, you know, your PR and marketing strategy for the launch of Kétastase, which was a huge success. And I remember Kétastase at the time was, some media were like, it sounds like a disease. What is Kétastase? It wasn't as popular as it is now, right?
Well, it was actually the third time in Canada for Kétastase. Kétastase was born, it's one of the very few L'Oréal born brand. That's not something that they purchased, that they created internally. In the 60s, 1964, I think was the creation. At that point, it was more of a treatment line. So it was mostly treatment, in-salon treatments and all. So it actually went on for maybe 10 years, and then they had a few shampoos and conditioners and all that. So everybody remembers Bain Satin and Masque Intense, because these are two of the original products. And Lait Vital Protéiné. These are the three, that was the first trio that they ever created, and they still have it. Okay? This is something, almost 60 years later, they still have those three products, iconic, and they're still part of their best sellers.
Products, right?
Iconic, exactly.
Crazy.
Then it came back in the 80s, in the 90s, with a mixed distribution and mixed manufacturing, because L'Oréal manufactures a lot of their products also in Canada, but cannot manufacture everything. So some of the aerosols were produced in France, and some of the stuff was produced in a different factory in Spain. So it was coming from different places. And that was in the years where the currency just crashed and all of that. So the price points were all over the place. So it ended up being just a small group of products that were selling very well, and the rest was not selling at all. Then it was removed from the market. Then L'Oréal did a full rebranding of the brand, repackaging, reimagining, and the whole thing, full luxury. They did the Gucci. They actually looked at, it's really, their inspiration was Gucci. They look at Gucci, a legacy brand that had old lady clientele, and how Gucci became the young generation. And Gucci has been the young generation, has been the 19-year-old, their target market still today. Okay?
Yes, they're redoing it now, right?
Yeah, and one of the reasons they hired me is because I had worked at Gucci in Asia. Well, Gucci was doing this whole flip over from being a legacy brand to a trendy brand.
I didn't know that. This is so interesting. My God. Wow.
Yeah, so so that was like that flip. So somehow, at Kétastase, they were like, okay, well, this is who we're copying in terms of this is the inspiration of what we are doing, and you've done it in Singapore, and Indonesia, and Thailand, and the whole Southeast Asia. So let's see if you can help us exactly in Canada. So then we arrived in Canada. We are a very small brand, a niche brand in the mega L'Oréal world, where at that point L'Oréal was pretty much the way of launching any product was you buy your way into the magazines, because there used to be every magazine, like the September issue of Elle Canada was 250 pages. Okay, and then the American Vogue was 600 pages. And L'Oréal would have the first 50 pages were all L'Oréal ads. From
all their brands,
Biotherm to all their brands. Exactly. They have now they have 35 brands. But
they had a huge ad power, right? Let's say they were buying a lot.
exactly. With all their brands together, they had a huge buying power and they could make or break a magazine pretty much. But Kétastase, because of the luxury factor and everything, we had to go in a different way because there was no way we could compete with those budgets. We were not given those budgets. Okay, we had to be. We were actually a startup brand. We were treated. We had to work as a startup.
Yeah, it was like launching your own company. Of course, inside the L'Oréal frame, but I remember you didn't have all these resources and the huge power of advertising, obviously. So they wanted you to like launch it as if it was from zero. It was not as if it was starting launching it from zero. I remember. So
we were
that's
2
very
employees.
different.
And so after a couple of months, when we were ready to go, then I squeezed in the budget for PR. Because I knew coming from fashion that, yes, you can buy your way into a magazine, but the better way to actually be seen in a magazine is to be in their editorial pages. And you want to be into the, at the end, of what's new, the new products and all that stuff. You want your products features into what's new, what's trendy, what's happening out there. And even better, if you have any celebrity, the influencers of those days. I mean, Madonna was a big influencer of those days, and J-Lo was still an influencer at that stage. But, you know, these people, their hair was their signature. And if they were saying anything in any interviews, they would be asked, you know, what are you wearing, clothing, but what's your makeup, what's in your hair, who's your hairdresser, who's your makeup artist. So it was important for us to be tied with the best hairdressers and to make sure that the session hairdressers would be using the Kétastase products and the celebrities would mention it. At that point, we were just bringing it. We were lucky that the US had launched it almost a whole year prior to us and had used exactly that same strategy. Mm-hmm. So we had coverage already in InStyle magazine that was happening. And so we carried this over, but we didn't have anything in the Canadian magazines.
And InStyle was the Bible in those days, right? The Bible, the beauty Bible of beauty and fashion, actually. It was like the reference, like the magazine everybody was looking. And
yeah, it was the goal of everybody to make it in InStyle in the editorial pages. You know, and even advertising in InStyle back then was not easy because it was totally sold out. The magazine was sold out. So a lot of advertisers were waiting in line to actually get a page, hoping that someone would cancel. And so they could get a page. They didn't care where in the book they was going to be as long as they were in InStyle.
The situation is so different today, right?
So then that's where we decided, okay, we need to do PR. And I called my good friend Nathalie and was like, okay, so how do we do this? How do we create PR with a strategy for Quebec and a strategy for English Canada? Because Quebec has its own star system and media structure and all this whole world is different. So we had to have 2 separate strategies. And so in Quebec, we associated with a Quebec designer, we associated with Quebec celebrities. And then so we worked that way with events and gifting and all that. In Ontario, then we did something different. We went really experiential. So it was about inviting the editors to live the Kétastase experience at the best salons in Toronto and Vancouver.
Way before, like we hear that so much today, like we have to live, make your client live an experience, but it's true. That's what we did. We wanted so much to have like editors, beauty editors come to the hair salon. So I remember we were renting a limo. We were sending the limo to pick them up and just to make sure they would come to the salon. That's crazy when we think about it, right? But it worked.
And it was extreme. Yeah, exactly. We would go beyond. I mean, we would tell the hairdresser, you do whatever you need to do. So some of those editors got their hair colored, their hair cut, and the whole services, and they left with $500 worth of products.
For sure. Yes. Because when you have their attention, we don't want to miss it. You have to go all over and go above and beyond and make sure that they have the best experience of their life. You know what? We still do that. Like I was telling my partner, David, in Toronto, that this is something we know how to do that young agencies don't do anymore. Like, you know, use the professional hairdresser and make sure we invite, you know, top beauty editor and make them experience what it is to go to a hair salon. So interesting. Oh my God.
And
we
even
did so
when
many
we
things.
would sample, remember when we would sample those editors, we would make sure to sample them with the product that was adapted to their needs.
True.
So even though it was a launch of a product, we would send them the kit. This is the launch to feature in your magazine, and this is for you.
Yes.
Because the launch doesn't work for you.
Yeah, and we had very few styling products at the time. Now, Kétastase has a whole range, but at the time, and even still today, what the magazines or beauty editors talk about the most are styling product. And we became the number one brand, Kétastase, like the number one hair brand for many years in Canada through all these magazines and publication. And at the time was so different. So yeah, we could do some TV, radio shows. It's very different.
Two big stories, I think, that made the big difference back then. The number one was the Soleil range. So when we launched Soleil and we focus on color protection with
such a good memory. Yeah, such a great memory. I remember it was a huge range when we launched it. I don't know how many products, 7 or 8.
8 products. We had a beautiful bag, and so, but it was, a big, because there was a big story to be told. And then the second big launch was the Oleo Relax. And it was just all about smoothing curls or glorifying your curls and whatever. And because of that, this is where we had somewhat of a styling, because we had the smoothing oils, and then we have the mousse, so there was a little bit of nurturing, nourishing styling products in there. And so this is where we started to have that story, and it was about curls and curls up or curl down.
Way before American Oil. Way before American Oil. Like everybody knows American, but that's many years before American Oil. That's interesting when you think about it.
Exactly.
Oh my God, so many things, right? Oh, but I know we could talk about Kétastase for hours, but I think I've seen you for the more than 20 years now reinvent yourself, especially now with the pandemic. This is something we've heard so much. It's kind of a huge trend, reinventing oneself, and it's even a buzzword. But in your case, this is something you've done all your life, all during your entire career. Like decided to, well, first of all, even when you were young, you decided to go to English university to learn English, and then you decided to move out of Canada. And you told me, I remember when you moved to Southeast Asia, was kind of your first international trip out of Canada, wasn't it?
First time I used the passport.
That's crazy.
I had traveled before across the country in Canada. I had traveled to many places in the US. I had never gone outside of Canada or USA. And I took my first flight outside of this to fly to Tokyo, connecting to Singapore.
That's insane. Well, so you know something about reinventing yourself. So is there any link? Like sometimes, there's this, I don't know, constant theme across all these experiences in your life, personal and professional. Is there any, do you have a special recipe, something you follow when you need to move on or reinvent something?
First, I've learned the plan F, the rule of the plan F. There's some of the stuff that, plan A is never works as intended, okay, no matter what. So they always ask you to have a plan B, and usually plan B is just a souped up version, something like a reduced version of plan A. And plan B usually doesn't work either. So you usually start working really into your project around plan C and plan D, okay? And then plan E, I would say, is kind of like where you're really now trying to save it. And when you get to plan F, it means F it, okay? It's time to throw the baby, throw the water, get rid of it. It's not going to happen. Stop flogging that horse. It's dead. Move on. Leave it behind. That's okay.
But you've done it many times in your life, and even in your professional life.
Yeah.
So, but you have a sense, you feel it when it's happening?
Well, it's when you've tried so hard, so many ways. Sometimes there's some projects are not supposed to survive. It's sometimes you have to let go. You have to stop it there. I think work projects, it's like relationships. At some point, if you've gave it all and it's not working, and then now you're just compromising yourself, your beliefs and all of this, or you're just doing something and doesn't make sense, but you're just doing it to please a board, to please a CEO and whatever, even if you don't believe in it, even if you think it's not going to work, and then you've proven it was not going to work, and now it's been changed so many times that you don't even want to do it, then it's time to go. Time to let it go. It's time,
Move on to plan F. Yeah. It's funny because I was talking about, I call those, I'm making fun with this. I call those the rules of the laws of PR and marketing. And one rule is we hear a lot. It's kind of almost a good word now, failing. And you can use other word for that, but they say sometimes fail forward, fail fast. Like if you feel it's not going to work, just let it go, because if you keep going and working on something that's not going or not working, you better stop. Even if you lose some things along the way, you're going to gain on the other side, and you're going to gain faster.
You have to be careful of not letting go too fast. That's easy to do.
True.
To let go too fast and then miss an opportunity. If it's too easy, it's because you could have done better. Okay, you could have pushed it more. You could have done something, anything. It needs to be, it needs to have a little bit of resistance to be very successful. You need to work at it, and sometimes then you need to be flexible, and you need to be willing to experiment. We need to be willing to shift. And one thing I've learned, I can't remember where I learned that, but it was in a presentation where at some point stuff was not working. And one of my mentors, and I think it's Leanne Sanders, who's dead now, who died about 2 years ago. And she told me, she says, nobody but you knows what's on the next slide.
So true. I love it. This is true. We're our worst enemy.
So if you've gone too fast, if you burn something, that's okay. Just catch it somewhere else, but it's fine. Don't trip over the small stuff and the small things like that,
So true. So let's go back to the web a little bit. And many of our clients are obsessed with the web, especially since the pandemic. And now that you work for a company that offers products and services online, is your perception of the web different? Like, do you look at the web in a different way?
Well, that's a large question. I will focus on web more like web commerce. I think people think that web commerce is the only way of the future, that everybody's going to buy everything on Amazon and everybody going to get stuff delivered at their door. I think what's interesting, it is a proven fact that Amazon destroy and allows an industry to reinvent itself. It started with the books. It killed the bookstores, pretty much. But then what happened is bookstore got very specialized. Amazon doesn't go for depth, doesn't go for specialty. They go for volume. Okay, it needs to be a lot of stuff because it's just an algorithm that just sells bestsellers. So they're not interested, even if it's not their own merchandise, they're not interested into the 17 different episodes of something or, big assortments and all that. So you get the flip side on anything is specialty. Same thing with travel. At some point Amazon killed travel, the Expedia killed travel, but now you have agencies that specialize into cruise vacations, into the horseback riding expeditions and stuff like that. So it creates specialization. So then web becomes an information source, a way to find what is available to you, and a bit of showrooming, shopping in advance and knowing what's out there. But also it pushes people to make those decisions. Like, what do I want to work? Do I want to purchase from a big international brand that has no soul? Do I want to work for a small company, also international, that has a purpose and that has a soul and is actually there for his employee, has good hygiene, if you want, company hygiene, ethics, and is actually open-minded and has a mission? Or do I want to do the same thing but with a very small local business that I will support because I know the owner and the kids go to the same school and stuff like that? I think you have people now that it's three separate markets, but it's the same consumer. It's not true that one person buys only at one place and only at the others. We are all sprinkling our money. Some people more than others. I am very mindful that, yes, there's some of the stuff that Amazon serves me better than anybody else. There's some other stuff that I would prefer to go to local company, local organization, or a global organization that I know has the right purpose for me. So, and then sometimes I just make sure to go get my strawberries at the local market.
This is interesting. And I think that the large corporations will not disappear for sure. But
well, one example I have, we all, during the pandemic, we all went to buying prepared food. Okay, I mean, at some point, you were fed up of cooking every single meal. Then we ordered from our 5 favorite restaurants, but then at some point you get fed up. So we all tried the HelloFresh, Miss Fresh, good food and all of this to see, yes, it was good, but then all that stuff that you throw into garbage and everything. And at some point, with the force of the web, I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, I wish I could get the food in reusable containers, in a reusable ice box that I could return and exchange, and I would have zero garbage. But there's absolutely no way that I'm the only person who think of that. Somebody must have created this already. So I Googled, and I found this Montreal-based company called Antoine. Exactly that. You order on Thursday, it comes in on Monday. It was not more expensive. It was zero waste. It was very good. It was convenient. It had everything else. I didn't even have to cook it. I just had to warm it up.
Yeah, you're right. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think we are, like we said a little earlier, we are at the point where people are looking for mission, for vision. It's even more than before. It's no longer just buzzwords. So people want to know where your company is coming from. They want to know the real story. Why did you start that business? What problem did you solve for yourself or for someone else? What was your driving force of creating this? Why were you so passionate about chocolate? Why were you so interested in stretch jeans? Why did you need to produce another brand of shampoo? So what were you trying to achieve in there? And they want to know that there's a person behind the brand. And interestingly, I think now when a lot of those brands are build themselves to be purchased, and just double and be purchased by big conglomerates, what you see now is many of those brands that end up being purchased by big conglomerates, they fizzle out because the brain and the heart behind the brand is no longer with the brand after a while, and people associate with the brain and the heart behind the brand. So I think that's the message to communicate. This is the thing that's important. Whichever tool we're going to have in the future to publish and to communicate that information. TikTok is the thing of the moment. Clubhouse is the other thing. In 6 months, there's going to be another platform. We just have to be super versatile, knowing that there's multi-platforms out there, and to be ready to drop some. If Twitter doesn't work for you, it doesn't give you any results, just stop it. Don't use Twitter if it doesn't work for you. So I think the future is actually the present, and I think it's going to be the same for quite a while. But I think what's important out there is people want to know what a brand stands for. And they also want to know the truth behind what a brand stands for. So they want to know that there's a person in there or a group of people that they created this business because of an opportunity. What was the opportunity? What were they trying to achieve? Which problem are they solving, for their customers, for themselves, and why they turned that into a business? They want to see also who is actually building this business to bring people along with them versus who wants to bring this business in order to generate wealth for themselves and from some rich investors. Because you see it now, there's some of those brands that grow super fast that sell to those mega companies and they disappear within 3 to 5 years. I'm not going to name companies, but there's a list of those. Where it was the fastest growing skincare, makeup, jean, clothing, shoes, whatever. And then the big company purchased them 2 years after. The stores are closed, the business is gone, and
the brand doesn't
some of the patents maybe. Sometimes the brand is gone completely. It's absorbed,
I know. It's interesting because people are looking for meaning in what they buy and what they purchase. The younger generation is also very careful, and I'm sure you have kids, so you know that already. Sometimes when we speak to influencers now, they say, well, I'm very careful what I say yes to. So I think it's a great product, but I'm thinking about my carbon footprint, and please don't send me the product. So I'm like, wow, this this is a very different way of looking at consumption, what you buy, what you receive. So it's going to be interesting what's going to happen in the future. And I agree with you. So brands wants to last. We will always find these brands that want to make money quickly, and they're going to grow. They're going to use the web to grow fast and to sell it and make money and disappear. For sure, these will always be there. But the ones who want to last will have to think differently and offer different solution to their clients, for sure.
Yeah, and the message is going to be a lot about energy, about waste, about water, because our world is going to be out of water at some point. So a lot of that is going to be very important into the message, and especially in a time where overconsumption may be changing. And again, I always believe that there's two kind of market. There's for every trend there's a counter trend. So there's a group of people who are not going to change their buying behavior because that's where they come from. This is what they know. But there's another group of people who actually choose to change their buying behavior, to be very conscious about what they are supporting.
So good. Alain, we can speak for weeks together. I will reinvent you. When you launch maybe the French version of your software with PHOREST, maybe I'll reinvite you for you to talk about it. It's going to be interesting. So to finish, what should we hope for you?
Really, I don't need anything, for me, as long as I keep learning, that I'm having fun, that things are interesting, that there's challenge, I'm good. I think that's what's interesting for me, and that I continue to evolve. Like, I always believe that if you stop evolving, if you stop moving, you actually move backwards. You don't stay still.
I agree.
Okay, the world goes faster than you if you stop moving. So you need to just keep doing this. I just want to keep having that drive and energy, and just do that for as long as I can.
So we wish you to keep learning new things and be excited about what you do. So to find out about PHOREST Salon Software, I'll put the link below, but it's phorest.com, PHOREST, phorest.com. And if they want to reach you, they will find you there as well?
Slash CA. But anyway, it's geolocalized. It will actually bring you automatically to the country you're in. So it's phorest.com/CA for Canada.com would bring you to the US, or would automatically geolocalize you wherever you are in the world. The way to reach me is in there. The Canadian number is in there. So, or you can find me just with my name, Alain Audet, on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, thank you so much, Alain. It was a real pleasure having you on the podcast, and hopefully people have learned a few things, and I hope you'll be there la semaine prochaine. Hey, you want to learn more about how to implement PR strategies? Head on to natapr.com and get on our list. You will also receive the NATA PR model on how to create a successful PR campaign. If you want to become a client, just send us an email to nata@natapr.com. Talk to you next week. À la semaine prochaine.